Composing Gloves here, and today we are checking out Quartarone Guitar Reveries. Just as a small disclaimer, I did receive this library for free for the purposes of review, just so you're aware. I did also make a database here, so if you're wondering about just regular stat stuff, how much it costs, all this sort of stuff, notes, what does it do, what does it not do, strong points, all that stuff is right here. I'll continue to add to this database as I go. It's on my website underneath articles and guitar library database. And then I also have a review section for it. So if you're interested in getting a lot more detail, had a lot more time to think this out, you can find that here. So again, all the stats are displayed at the top with just the product that's relevant. And then we go through and look at everything. So let's start off with some audio demos, and then we'll dive into any sort of technical limitations and issues later. So, which there weren't really any. I'm making it sound like there's a whole bunch. There are a few sort of things that I thought were a bit strange, but the library overall I actually really enjoyed. It felt really simple to use and so forth. So let's go ahead. There's only one sound in here. That's the piano. It's only there for one note. Other than that, the entire track is Quartarone Guitar Reveries. And I may say this wrong a couple times. The way it's spelled and pronounced to me is like, it always trips me up. So let's go ahead. Yeah, so pretty cool track, very fun to work with. And as far as the sounds themselves go, I had to do very little to the sounds. I did do quite a bit reverb wise and spatial wise, but you could hand me pretty much any sample library and I would do the same moves that I did here. So let me just really quick show you sort of what was sitting on the mix. So here is the mix, and I do have some mastering stuff going on, pushing it back up with the Pro L2. But we have here some reverb, occasionally being automated, a fruity balance for some gain movement. I don't like to automate faders. I like to automate, other things so that the faders can sort of set position. And then, what else? I think I had a timeless 3 on here. That's a stereo shaper X. And we got Paragon on there, this is a reverb. So, okay, cool. So you get the idea. Very little has been done to these sounds, just some basic setting and space sort of things. The library itself, I found the pads and some of these pluck sounds are just so nice and organic. The interface itself, or let's start over with the library tab. It is a library. You activate it through native instruments, so it does work with the free Kontakt player. So you do not need to own the full version of Kontakt in order to use this library. Which for its price, that is pretty dang astonishing. And so you open it up. They've got 3 layers of presets, and all the presets are kind of based off of this empty patch. So let me go ahead and load up one in the extra Kontakt I have here. So the empty patch, the way it works is you select from the sound source. So let's say we pick harmonics in another one, granular sustain. You can manipulate sample properties and some effects here, which they cover all this stuff in their manual. And most of it's pretty straightforward. The only two things that I thought were the symbols were a bit strange, and I mentioned this in my review. This is really nitpicking too. In the written review, that is this symbol here and this symbol here, which if I recall, this one's distortion. This one's tremolo, which I kind of vibe that. This for distortion was kind of an interesting choice. And then this one's wet dry. I've been thinking what other symbols could they have used, I don't know. So anyways, you pick your two sounds. You could dial in some effects here. They call these iris controls, which I thought was a really cool name. And you can mix things and put them together. All the presets are essentially different, combinations of this. So it's really easy to slap together your own sound. And in the effects area, you can have effects on the A layer or the B layer. Pretty standard effect stuff here. And then you've got a bit of global effects. So if we just grab some presets here, yeah, we'll change them out. So this is the guitar area. These are patches that are supposed to be more guitar-like. Let's go ahead, let's grab on one, just harmonics. And you heard that on some of these pluck sounds, especially where this big layer comes in. That's taking advantage of some of those plucky harmonic patches. Let's just go through one or two more of these. And then I give some ratings for the general patch distribution. If we go over to the website real quick, just to show you what I mean. If we come over to, where is it at? There it is. Leads, bass, pads, keys, and then we have others. So I give these ratings. Oh, the others isn't here. I'm going to have to add that. And this is really just distribution of number of patches that focus on things. There's a bit of judgment that comes in there, but for the most part, a lot of sounds I think will work well as leads. There are a few patches that work well as basses, and then they have a ton of patches that work really well for pads and keys. I think the pads on this are exceptional. So here's the pads folder. I've loaded one up. I just love this kind of stuff. I'm kind of a sucker for it. Maybe I'm a bit biased. But it's so tonal. The way it comes in, it's not too slow or too fast. And it's got a nice sustain that makes it easy to bring in more sounds. Like it doesn't, or more notes, I mean. Like harmony is just, it's going to work really well with these sorts of sounds. Let's bring up another. That one's pipe. So these kinds of things. So if you're into these kinds of sounds, if you're looking for a library that has this sort of an element to it, this might be the one for you. And this is, when I wrote this, I typically, I just wanted to try out all the different sounds. So I was fiddling through tons and tons of presets, and that's so cool. Often when you do that, you come across one or two patches that you're like, I'll never use that for anything. That did not happen here. And so that was kind of a pleasant experience. You'll notice that the sound sources, there's only, I believe if I recall, there's 25 sound sources that you can mix between the two, which I thought was, at first I was under the impression, that's not a ton, but just based off of the sounds we can get out of just the presets, I kind of did a 180 on that and think they went for quality over quantity in this case. So it's kind of a nice thing. So this is the keys. Some of the keys on my keyboard aren't triggering when I push them. These are patches that I think work much better for bass sounds. Well, that one in particular. There's a few in here that I think work really well for that. It would have been nice if they had a bass category for those types of patches. That'd probably be, if I were to add one thing here, that'd probably be it. Let's go through another keys patch. This one's called Soft Woodwinds. So that's the general vibe you're gonna get. The notes on the bottom here, you might think that there's some like, typically when you see colors like this, they're usually attached to effects, and when you push it, it triggers an effect. But in this case, they just express the note mapping. So you can't get to the actual samples of the instrument itself. So you can like mess with them, but you can go into the back engine of Kontakt. You click the little wrench. We could take a look here real quick at the mapping editor, and we can see sort of the sampling. So the green signifies that this is a very stretched sample. And then it looks like around every 5 notes, I actually counted it out in the written one, they have a sample and they've got the velocity level. So they didn't go super ham with, sampling every single little thing, but they do have a decent amount of sampling, and sometimes going lighter on the sampling can be easier because it's easier to get samples to sound consistent throughout. And for the sounds that they have here, some of them border, especially the pad sounds, on the sort of more synthetic side. So it really works for an instrument like this. So why bloat the size of the instrument when you can do this? And so arguably here, the velocity levels are more important anyways. Interestingly, they didn't note this on their website. I couldn't find anywhere where they mentioned this, but if you go into the groups, they do have round robins on here. They have some RRs listed, which I believe are the round robins. So that's pretty cool. I think they should mention that somewhere. That's a pretty cool thing to have. And that is the instrument. I mean, in a nutshell, there's not really a ton here. It's just a really nice sounding, fast, easy to use instrument. Interface is a tad small, which I say like it's kind of a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I like the small instruments significantly more than the big ones. The big ones just eat up so much screen space. My goodness. So I really don't like instruments that are just big because Kontakt lets you make the instrument that big. If you're going to be a big instrument, in order for me to like you, like one that takes up a ton of screen, you better have controls that are useful on the entire friggin' thing. So I think this is really well done for what it is. They did opt for the individual slots for the UI instead of one unified script that sort of handles the tabs for you. So that was an interesting decision. It does simplify things. So I think the UI would look cleaner without it. But again, this is all nitpicking. I really like the sound itself. Something else that this plus sign looks like it should do something. But when I click it, nothing happens. I'm not sure if it does do something. I didn't look in the manual for that question in particular, but it kind of gives the impression that it should do something. Let's go for another one. This one's Trinity. So very, very nice. I do have a couple other things on here. There's no tooltips, which I think that the 2 symbols that I said were a bit confusing. If you had tooltips, that could potentially solve it and make it just a little bit more clear. But that's really it. There's no sequencer support. So for a guitar, cinematic guitar, this is kind of okay. So they don't have, like, for example, a strumming engine or anything like that, which here I really don't think was the goal. If you read the thing on their website, they talk about how they're aiming for textures, and I think they really nailed exactly what they were going for. If you have any questions about this, feel free to let me know. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day.